All right, you can be seated. We're on the record. Records show the presence of counsel and the defendant. The jury is absent. Mr. Jetty or Ms. Hunley, I need to know what remains of the state's case in chief.
We're currently in the cross-examination of Detective Barba. And after Detective Barba, we have Border Patrol Agent Tercey, which should be quick. I mean, this is from the state's perspective, quick from our perspective. And then we have the finishing up of dispatch witness on Friday and Detective Ayden. And that's it.
Thank you. What does the defense anticipate of its case in terms of how much time you're going to need?
Your Honor, we're hoping to get through it fairly quickly. We have Sheriff Hathaway, we have Border Patrol Agent Lyugan, Border Patrol Agent Gorman, and Detective Raul Rodriguez that we anticipate calling, and then possibly the defendant, possibly not.
Give me an estimate of how much.
2 days?
2 days?
The way things are going, I'd say yes.
Well, all right. I'm going to start imposing time limits in this case on direct and cross-examinations.
Detective?
When we've been discussing this case, leading up to the case, and during the trial, counsel advised me that this case would take 3 weeks. I have to rely on what you tell me. I don't know who the witnesses are going to be, what they're going to testify to, or what the duration of time is going to be. I was told it was going to be 3 weeks. Today is 3 weeks, right? Today is 3 weeks. We started on March 21st. Today's 3 weeks, and the state's still in this case. As I also been monitoring and asking counsel for how we're doing, how we're progressing on this case, so that I could decide whether and determine whether I needed to exercise any authority over the pace of the case. I was informed by the state that there was a possibility that they would rest last Friday. Here we are on Thursday. The state's not going to rest today, and if we continue, then the state will maybe rest at the close of business on Friday. I assume Detective Ayden is going to be a lengthy witness. So clearly, we are behind schedule. This case is going to go to the jury next week. It's going to go to the jury next Thursday, and I'm going to move this case so that that happens. And I'm going to start imposing time limits. This line of cross-examination of Detective Barba, tell me what it is, tell me why it's relevant and what you're trying to do.
Are you referring to Ramon, talking to Detective Barba about Ramon?
I am.
Ramon is somebody who came forward in this case. He made a false report to law enforcement. Law enforcement collected information from Ramon that was verifiably false. Law enforcement failed to exercise any kind of standard of care over this investigation. It shows law enforcement's bias, and it shows their ineffectiveness in actually being able to investigate the case. It's crucial to the defense to be able to put on this information.
So the line of questioning is basically, well, first of all, Ramon's not a witness, right? Correct. He's not going to testify. Ramon came forward. He gave information. Is the defense point of view an argument that he gave false information, correct? All right. They looked at Ramon. They decided for whatever reason not to use Ramon, maybe in part because he wasn't an honest witness or he's not available. But so basically what you're trying to prove is that, as I understand it, through this cross-examination, is you have a witness who gave false information, he's not being used, and you're just trying to determine that the state didn't adequately investigate his false information?
That's true. He's also a potential suspect. Judge, anybody who comes forward to put themselves at the scene of the crime should be looked at as a person of interest. We had a witness testify that because Mr. and Mrs. Kelly were at the scene of the crime, they were persons of interest. Anybody who puts himself there is a person of interest, if not a potential suspect, and we have a right to question the investigation and to challenge them and to get to the bottom of why they didn't pursue other people who are making false reports and maybe potential suspects.
Very well. You can do that, but this examination is way beyond the scope of the direct examination. This is evidence that is more properly presented in the defense case in chief. You can present that in the defense case in chief if you want. We're not going to go into it any further right now. It's beyond the scope of the direct examination, and it's more evidence that's to be presented in the defense case in chief. If you wanted to present that in the defense case in chief, you can do that. And if you do that, because of the way we discussed this yesterday and the ruling of the court, is that then we're going to play the entire video of the interview. And I don't know, did you determine how long that's going to take?
It's only 20 minutes, Your Honor.
20 minutes, that's good. But that'll come out in your case in chief, and that'll come out of the defense time.
I just have to object, Judge. I think that's going to cause this to take longer. If we have to recall Detective Barba to go through that, it'll take longer. I'm allowed in cross-examination to exceed the scope of direct. I'm not in any way limited by what the state asks this witness on direct. And if I have to call this witness in our case in chief, then I'm not able to lead the witness, so that's going to take
You'll
even
be able to
longer.
lead the witness. He's an adverse witness. I'll allow you to lead the witness. The rules provide that if you call a witness and he's associated with an adverse party, the court can allow that. That's the ruling of the court. Let's call the witness to the stand. We're not going to question the witness anymore on this particular point. You have 5 more minutes with this witness on cross-examination.
Judge, I have to object. This witness is very crucial to the defense. I've never been limited to the lead detective. This is the witness who's supposed to be the lead detective. I've never been limited to just 5 minutes of cross-examination. And this witness testified to all sorts of involvement in this case. This is one of the defense's main witnesses that we have to get to. Judge, limiting me to 5 minutes of cross-examination with this witness violates Mr. Kelly's
You
constitutional
now have
rights.
4 minutes. Call the witness.
Make a bill. Do we need to make a bill? I don't know what that means. Let's just get through this. Let's work about procedure when he would be there to testify to. Oh, Proffer.
May he approach him?
Yes, please flip forward and have a seat.
Can I get the whiteboard, Validia?
Please have a seat. I remind every witness who appears after they've appeared on a prior date, you're still under oath.
Okay.
All right?
We need the jury, Your Honor.
Bring in the, good point. Bring in the jury.
What's the special action?
Please rise. Please be seated. The records show the presence of all the jurors, counsel, and the defendant. Juror number 4, I had a conversation with your point of contact from your employment. She's very accommodating. The clerk is going to work out the details. I don't anticipate a problem. All right? All right. Witness is still under oath, and you can continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good morning. Detective Barba, I'm going to just have you look at a very basic map, okay? And I want you to help me put some things on this map, okay? You were at the house. This is Mr. Kelly's house, let's say, all right? You are aware that the body of the victim was discovered to the east of the house, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So body's over here, and this distance from the body to the house, that's about 115 yards. Is that correct?
I didn't do the measurement, so I wouldn't know the measurement.
Is that approximately right?
Sure.
Okay. And this is north, this is south, so down here is the border wall, okay? And would you agree, I know you didn't do the measurement, but that distance as the crow flies, that's about 1.5 miles. Is that correct?
Again,
More or less?
Sure.
I know you didn't do the measurements, but it's pretty far, right? Now, I want to ask you, let's say I'm a witness in this case. So let's say I come forward and I make a statement to you. Can you see this okay?
If you can go towards the front of your...
All right.
There we go.
Better?
Yep.
All right. So let's say I'm a witness in this case, and I come forward, and I tell you that I was standing right behind the victim when he was shot, and the house was on my left. That would put me to the west, right? That's where I would be if I told you I was facing south and the house was on my left. Would you agree that would put me out here?
Yes.
And what if I came forward and I told you, when this happened, I was 10 yards away from the house? That would be inconsistent with the facts that you observed, right?
Well, direction and distance is subjective. I mean, I don't
Well,
think...
if I say I'm facing south and the house is to my left, I'm facing the border
Let
wall.
the witness finish his answer. You can answer.
Direction and distance is subjective. For example, if I'm out in the wilderness and I don't have an idea of where it's north, or I'm just going to guess.
Okay, but let's say I'm pretty good with distance, and I tell you I'm facing south and the house is to my left, and I'm 10 yards away from the house, and I'm pretty good with distance. That's inconsistent with the facts that you observed. Is that right?
If you're good with distance and you have knowledge of northwest, east, then that would be a correct statement.
Okay, and let's say I tell you that I'm looking at the border wall and that it's 2 football fields away. If I tell you that, that's inconsistent with the facts also, right?
Yes.
What if I tell you that the shots, as I'm standing here, are coming from my right? Shots are coming from over here. That's what I tell you. That's inconsistent with the facts of this case also, correct?
Yes.
What if I tell you that there's a horse over here? Oh, there we go. In between me and where the shots are coming from, and that horse got shot in this incident. That's also inconsistent with the facts. Is that right?
Right.
And what if I also tell you that while I'm standing right behind this person, the victim who gets shot, he falls over backwards and lands on his back? That's also inconsistent with the facts of this case, correct?
And again, the facts are how the body was located, or?
The body was located on face down, correct?
Correct.
There's no evidence that you saw that anybody rolled this person over, is that right?
Again, I didn't go to the scene. I was not part of picking up the body, so any manipulation or the lack of manipulation, I wouldn't be able to testify to.
But you do know that the body was located face down, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And if a witness tells you this person fell over backward and landed on his back, and that's where he lay, that would be inconsistent with the facts, right?
Right.
Unless somebody rolled that body over after he fell down. Is that right?
Well, it also goes back to high-stress incidents. To my knowledge and the training I've received in high-stress incidents, you kind of tend to block specific details of the incidents.
Do you think high stress could account for facts like this being so far different from the facts you observed on the ground?
Definitely.
You think that's high stress could do that?
Yes,
You would agree that Mr. Kelly would be under a lot of stress during this incident, correct?
sure.
So if you're giving this person the benefit of the doubt, then you should give Mr. Kelly the same benefit of the doubt, correct?
Well, I'm not giving anybody the benefit of the doubt. I'm just stating what my training and my experience has taught me.
You have training and experience regarding false reports also, correct?
That's correct.
And could that also be something that explains why the story is so different from the facts?
It's sure.
It's a possibility that this just could be a false report, right?
In the evidence that we gathered throughout the investigation, I don't believe so.
If somebody came forward and gave you this story, you would still say that that's a credible person who gives you this story?
That, including everything else that we gathered in the investigation.
When you interviewed Daniel Ramirez, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You went into Mexico to interview him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you go into Mexico to interview him?
Because Daniel couldn't cross into the United States legally.
You could have called him on the phone, right?
He doesn't have access to a phone.
You could have arranged some sort of Zoom call, correct?
He doesn't have access to internet.
You could have spoken with Mexican officials to arrange something, correct?
Correct?
And you didn't do that, did you?
No.
You and Sheriff Hathaway crossed into Mexico to conduct a criminal investigation in Mexico, correct?
Well, it was a witness statement, witness interview.
Is taking a witness interview part of a criminal investigation?
Sometimes.
Was taking this witness interview part of a criminal investigation?
Yes.
So you conducted part of a criminal investigation in Mexico, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. Redirect examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, defense counsel asked you a number of questions about the Celebrite download of the victim's phone. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
She asked you about text messages, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell us, she asked you, were there other messages on the phone?
I just want to make sure that redirect is limited in the same way that my cross-examination was limited.
You can continue.
And I'd like to make a proffer when we're done with this witness.
You can continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you tell me, Detective, were there other text messages on the phone?
Which phone are we talking about, Ms.
The
Hunter?
victim's phone?
Yes, there were.
And can you tell us the nature of the other text messages you observed?
Yes, so there were two sets of messages threads, one on his personal phone message, the inbox, where you get from his phone number. And then he also had threads through an application called WhatsApp. Those applications from the WhatsApp threads were screenshotted by the investigator who did the download, and they were placed on an individual file for me to review. And in those WhatsApp threads were a numerous amount of family pictures. He was involved as, I believe he was a coach for his siblings or his kids, soccer team in Mexico. So it was a group thread where they were exchanging practice dates for the games, jerseys, etc.
Were they also discussing some kind of upcoming tournament?
Yes.
Now, the defense showed you a picture of the defendant and the download information. Is that right?
Correct.
And that was Defense Exhibit III, correct?
Correct.
And were you able to take a look at that image to determine whether that had any location data?
Yes.
Did it have any location data?
It did not.
When you took a look at the rest of the items that were on that Cellbrite report, defense asked you to speculate about what this picture depicted. Do you remember that?
Correct.
And based on what else you observed on the cell phone, is there anything else on that cell phone that gives you an idea what this photograph is about?
Objection, relevance. We tried to introduce other photos from the cell phone, and the court didn't let us do it, so I don't think
the question was
state-
directed to this particular photo, which is in evidence. The objection's overruled.
Well, if I remember correctly, that the date on that picture is on the 21st of January 2023. A few days prior to that, there's a video, January 18th of 2023, where you can hear Mr. Witimea speaking with a group.
Wait.
Without
The
telling us-
question was about the photograph. We're not getting
Yes.
into anything else.
Without telling us what folks said, were you able to ascertain from the video what was happening?
Yes.
What was it?
Again, the question, I thought the question was, what can he ascertain about this from looking at this photo, right?
Judge, the question was, the defense asked this witness to speculate what this photograph was about, and this witness observed within a couple of days of this photograph other video that put this in context. And so that's why I'm asking the witness this question. And that was specific to the defense's question to this witness.
Does the
on
defense
cross.
have that, does the defense have that other
They,
video?
they do, Judge. It's all on the Cellbrite.
I haven't been able to see the video, Judge. There was some description of a video in Detective Barba's report. We weren't able to find that on the Cellbrite.
All right, let's move on to another topic.
Just to follow up with the defense's question, are there any other things when you look at this that you think might be a possibility with respect to what you observed, based on what the defense asked you?
Yes, with the binoculars that he was wearing, I believe that he might have been hunting.
You were asked about your conversation with the medical examiner's office. Is that right?
Correct.
Do you even remember who you spoke to at the medical examiner's office?
I do not.
And if Dr. Tim testified it wasn't her, do you believe that she was accurate?
Yes.
Did you write the documentation that's in the medical examiner's report?
I did not.
Were you providing that information very early on in this case?
Yes.
Was that before you even attended the autopsy?
That's correct.
Did you have any opportunity to review that documentation prior to it going into the medical examiner's report?
I did not.
Have you ever had an opportunity to determine whether it was accurate?
No, when it was presented to me yesterday was the first time I saw it.
Are there some things in that documentation that are inaccurate?
Yes.
Do you recall what the items are that are inaccurate?
I would have to refresh my recollection of the document.
Do you know who declared the Mr. Butimea deceased?
I believe it was Deputy Lopez.
Okay, so that's your belief from what you learned that night, is that correct?
Correct.
I want to ask you about some questions the defense asked you with respect to Exhibit 130. That's the samples that you provided to RJ Lee Group. And I want to make sure I understood some of your testimony. The defense, when they were asking you those questions yesterday, asked you if all of the sample went into the same vial. At least that's how I understood the question. Is that how you collected the information, the data?
Each
Or the-
sample went into an individual vial.
And so you had how many separate vials?
5.
And so when you collected from each item, each one went into its own vial, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for this witness from members of the jury? We do. Why was a hotel in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico chosen to interview the witness at instead of the U.S.-Mexico Port of Entry or the Mexican consulate building? meeting recorded. Is that in reference to the meeting in Mexico? Or, okay. All right. That's Barbara number one. Barbara number two. You stated you received a handgun, cell phone, and a magazine from Sergeant Lopez upon arrival at the Kelly residence with the first search warrant. How were these items obtained? Was there a warrant for these items prior to arrival? I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear. In earlier testimony, this is question number two from the second juror. In earlier testimony, Sergeant Rodriguez confirmed a photo he had taken as a single footprint at the scene, and many others' testimonies confirmed there were no other signs of foot traffic around the body. Yet there has been testimony by witnesses there. In your opinion, how is this possible? Questions from another juror. I'm going to mark this Barbara 3. Was the geofence warrant executed in June, or did Google go back chronologically to January 30th? That's all. Go back on the record, please. A couple of questions from the jurors for the witness. Question, why was a hotel in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico chosen to interview the witness at, instead of at the U.S.-Mexico Port of Entry or the Mexican consulate building?
So I believe this part of that incident didn't get clarified. We weren't in a room in the hotel. We were in the public area of the restaurant of the hotel. And subsequent to that, we moved to a lounge that was empty at the time, however, still accessible to the public. The reason why we moved from the restaurant to the lounge was because the restaurant was busy. There were a lot of individuals consuming in the restaurant. We went over to the lobby, and we chose that place because it was a little bit more less noisy, less crowded, and it allowed us to do the interview more appropriately.
The question was directed towards why weren't alternative locations of either the Port of Entry or the Mexican consulate used?
The location was chosen by Sheriff Hathaway, and I was under his direction.
Another question from the same juror. Why was only part of this meeting recorded?
So the recording was a decision made by Sheriff Hathaway. When I conducted the meeting with Daniel, I just took notes about our conversation. The reason why I decided to do that was because this was a highly publicized case. I didn't want to bring any unwanted attention towards us that could contaminate the interview, because recording somebody in public when you're sitting down is uncommon, so it's going to bring some eyes to us, and they're going to start wondering, what are you guys doing? And I didn't want those extra eyes contaminated.
All right. There may be follow-up questions by the lawyers to these questions. Questions from another juror. You stated you received a handgun, cell phone, and a magazine from Sergeant Lopez upon arrival at the Kelly residence with the service of the first search warrant. How were these items obtained? Was there a warrant for these items prior to arrival? And the juror says, I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear.
Yes, the items were documented on the warrant, and they were just transferred from hand to hand. Deputy Lopez had collected them, and then he gave them to me.
All right, so they were obtained pursuant to a search warrant.
That's my belief, so yes.
Another question, if you know, in earlier testimony, Sergeant Rodriguez confirmed a photo he had taken of a single footprint at the scene, and there have been other testimonies confirmed that there were no other signs of foot traffic around the body. Yet there has been testimony by witnesses there. In your opinion, how is that possible? So the question really is, a single footprint was found, but there's been testimony of a lot of other foot traffic in the same area. How is it possible that only one footprint was found, if I understand the question correctly?
So I was not part of the collection of the body or the inspection of the surroundings, so I wouldn't be able to testify whether there was or there wasn't. And That would be my answer.
All right, final question from another juror. Was the geofence warrant executed in June? Or did Google go back chronologically to January 30th?
Yeah, so when I served the warrant to Google, I set a specific time on the warrant from January 29th to, I believe it was February 1st. So it went back to that time frame.
Very well. Hand the questions to the clerk. Follow-up questions to the questions from the jurors by the state.
Do you have any idea why the restaurant was chosen as opposed to other locations? I know you indicated that the sheriff picked it.
I don't, ma'am.
Was the area quiet enough where you were that you were able to conduct the interview?
Yes.
I think that's all I had, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larkin.
Just to be clear, you did not understand that Sheriff Hathaway had involved any officials from the Mexican government before conducting this investigation in Mexico, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
And you didn't think it was odd at all that you were going into Mexico to conduct this investigation?
Well, to my understanding and what was explained to me, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. He has a lot of background with DEA, and they do that often.
They typically have authority to do that, correct?
I'm not a federal agent, so I'm not sure what they have authority or don't have authority.
All right. When you interviewed Daniel in Mexico, you did not record it, right? But then Sheriff Hathaway did record a portion of this after you had spoken with Daniel, correct?
Well, it was immediately, it was not like there was a break in between. It was kind of immediately.
So you spoke with Daniel for what, 40 minutes or so, right?
Correct.
And then Sheriff Hathaway recorded the next 6 minutes of that interview, correct?
Correct.
And you stated that you didn't record this interview because you were concerned about privacy, correct?
Correct.
But Sheriff Hathaway went ahead and recorded the interview, correct?
Correct.
So he didn't share your concerns, correct?
Correct.
Is it standard practice to do an interview and only record a small portion of that interview? That's not standard practice, right?
No.
Did Daniel, did he ever tell you that his last name was really Varela?
I don't recall.
Okay. You never noted in your report that his last name could possibly be Varela, right?
No.
And also present at that interview were 2 family members of Gabriel, correct?
That's correct.
And some guy by the name of Juan Carlos Rodriguez, correct?
Right.
You didn't look into him at all, did you?
Well, he was identified as the uncle and the facilitator of the interview.
That's what he told you, right?
And the daughters confirmed that he was a relative.
You didn't confirm that independently, right?
Correct.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness from any members of the jury? Seeing none, thank you, sir. You can step down, and the state can please call your next witness.
State calls Agent Tercey.
The defendant, right? Ms. Wanda Kelly and the defendant, right?
That's correct. It sounds like you're going to move into a new area right now. Is that right? So it's a good time to take our mid-morning break. Is that all right? It's 9:45. We're going to take about a 20-minute break. I'll stay here with the lawyers. We'll come back about 10:05, depending on how long this takes for me to talk to them. We'll be in recess until about 10:05. Thank you. Excuse the jury. Thank you. Please be seated. The record show the absence of the jury. Ms. Larkin, you said you wanted to make an offer of proof concerning Detective Barba. You can do so. The court reporter and the clerk will remain in the courtroom to record your offer of proof.
Judge, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Cool. So in addition to obtaining testimony about the false report provided by Ramon, the cross-examination was going to continue to explore inconsistencies between Ramon and Daniel in terms of the inconsistencies that they made with each other, as well as inconsistencies that their statements were with the physical evidence. The cross-examination was going to further explore the interview that took place with Daniel in Mexico, including exploring inconsistent statements between what he told investigators in that interview and what he testified to in trial in this case. That interview is going to continue to explore the fact that Daniel provided a false name to law enforcement in this case. And the cross-examination would also go into generally the shell casing testing that was ordered, the forensic testing that could have been ordered, the forensic testing that was not ordered, and further exploring the double standard between the way these so-called witnesses were evaluated versus the way that Mr. Kelly was evaluated. And the cross-examination would continue to explore the inadequacy in this investigation in terms of interviewing people who came forward, who placed themselves at the crime scene as possible suspects. That's it.
Wait a minute.
And we just want to make a further record, sorry Denise, you okay? Make a further record that the fact that our cross-examination was significantly limited violates Mr. Kelly's right to confrontation of these witnesses and due process.